here.
No, Charlie.
All right. Okay. Set. I know you got tons of paper. We'll go ahead. Set. All right, excellent. Well, good evening, everybody. I'm going to call to order Woodstock's Planning and Zoning Commission for July 21st, 2022. And I got 7:40 p.m. for the start. We'll go through a roll call of commissioners. We'll do it first for those of us who are here and then anyone who is by Zoom. Dwight, do you mind starting us off, please? The roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But then I'll have you do the Pledge of Allegiance after.
Dwight Reynolds, Tim Young, Mark Blackmore, Joseph Ataletta, Dean Gould, Sid Bludgeon,
Jeff Gordon
Dave Morse,
Joe Palulik.
and Doug Porter, you're on Zoom.
I'm here, yes.
And Jeff Marcotte told me he's unable to attend, and Nancy Frazier unable to attend. That takes us to seating of alternates. It looks like we need 2 alternates. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. So I'm trying to keep it in whatever consistent way we've been trying to do it. So the listing I have right now for 2 alternates in the order we've been trying to deal with it would be Dean Gould and Dwight Reynolds, if you guys accept. All right, you guys can have a big celebratory party afterwards. So we'll note that for the record that they're seated. And I'm going to note that on this form here too. that I have to submit. That then takes us to Pledge of Allegiance. Dwight, if you would like to start us out.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. My chair's report will be quick because I know we have a busy meeting and we will try not to be here past midnight. My usual thank yous to staff for the work that gets done at meetings and in between meetings, and also to my fellow commissioners. I know we're meeting twice a month because there's a lot of stuff we have to do, including this meeting, which is action-packed for us. I'll also note that Ashley is no longer here with us, so she's not at this meeting. So Tuesday was her last day, so to speak. So, and we'll work through as far as how we'll handle things with the office and zoning enforcement and the work of the commission and the clerical work that we need to do for the meetings. Hence why I was busy passing paper out to get everything out. I have 2 other items I will discuss, but those I'm going to reserve for later in the meeting because we have other items that we do need to get to. So I'll get to those later in the meeting. Citizens' comments. This is for if someone from the public wishes to speak on an item that is not on the agenda. If it's on the agenda already, then you'd have to wait for that agenda. Okay.
Government should be maintained, even if it wasn't the most historic moment I've experienced in my reporting life. There
we go. Well, whoever is on iPad 4, I muted. So that takes us to our most exciting part of the meeting, which is approving our meeting minutes. So we have 2 sets. We have June 16th and June 7th. What is the will of the commission? Or no will?
Move to accept the minutes of June 16th as presented.
So this would be for that one, okay? Let me mark this down. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
So this is a Joe and Joe
Yes.
motion. All right. So motion made by Joe Adaletta, seconded by Joe Palula to approve the meeting minutes of June 16, 2022 as presented. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I have to go through the roll because this is a hybrid meeting. Joe Adaletta,
Aye.
Mark Blackmer,
Aye.
Sid Blodgett,
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, aye. Dean Gould,
Aye.
David Morse,
Aye.
Joe Palula,
Aye.
Dwight Reinowitz,
Aye.
and Timothy Young.
Aye.
That so passes. And then that takes us then to the next meeting minutes of July 7th. Is there a motion?
I move we accept the minutes.
And is there a second?
Second.
So motion by David Moore, seconded by Joe Adaletta to approve the meeting minutes of July 7th, 2022. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll go through the roll. Joe Adaletta,
Aye.
Mark Blackmer,
Abstain.
Sid Blodgett,
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, aye. Dean Gould,
Aye.
David Morse,
Abstain.
Joe Palula,
Aye.
Dwight Reinowitz,
Aye.
and Timothy Young.
I abstain.
So even with the abstentions, that so passes. Amy, congratulations. Your unbroken record of minute approvals is still unbroken. So we still have a bunch of the year to go though. So if you know, I don't know what will happen, but congratulations so far. We'll put an announcement out in the paper. Non-residential zoning permits, we do not have any. That's correct, Delia?
As far as I know.
You know, I haven't heard of any from Ashley when I spoke with her on Tuesday. So we do not have any to go through. That takes us then to old business. This is agenda item 6. An old business is listed as part 1 and part 2 just because we have a public hearing. And I actually will just ask, the public hearing is supposed to start at 7:45. We're not going to start right away at 7:45 because we have a couple of items that we just have to square away. So unless the Beausoleils have any objection, we will continue on with our agenda. Thank you, I appreciate that. So that takes us to agenda item 6A. This is 63000801 Morse Hibbard Road 2-lot subdivision. This is about development on the lot. And just to remind people, we have dealt with this previously. I forget when this was back in. I know we have all the paperwork on it. This was back in 2018, it looks like. With regards to dealing with a subdivision application, but at the time, there wasn't an actual proposal for the house. So in order to complete the subdivision process, we have to take this back up. It's a 2-lot subdivision, so technically it requires no public hearing automatically, so it's considered a minor subdivision. So we needed to get, this was last month that we had to table it because we were waiting for NDDH approval. We have received NDDH approval. So we did receive that on July 19th. So I'll open it up and I'm just going to note for the record, David Morse, you're recused for obvious reasons. And when we're done with this agenda item, you'll be reseated. But I'll open it up to the commission. This is the last item we've been waiting for is NDDH approval, and that completes what we're required to get. Technically, we'll have to vote to approve what's proposed, and if we approve it, that finalizes the process, and then there's whatever happens afterwards behind the scenes through the office.
Can I just say one thing? This is actually from my daughter, Mary Kate. No.
That's why I only said Morse
Okay.
and not David Morse. Yep. I think that's clear on the application as well. That it's not you per se, it's the family name. So, yeah, so that way it's clear looking at the agenda. But I'll open up to commissioners or whatever the will of the commission is. Joe?
Just want to confirm that all the other portions of the application have been submitted and completed. This was the only item that we were waiting for, the PTH approval.
That is my understanding.
I believe
Delia?
so.
Yep,
Okay.
because that was all that we were told at the last meeting that we were waiting to get. We were hopeful we would have gotten it and we just didn't. So that's why we had to table it to this meeting. But yes, according to what I've been told, and I spoke with Ashley either Monday or Tuesday to see if there was anything else or anything else on file that we didn't get that was for this, and she said no. And you haven't received anything.
No.
So as far as we know, it is complete. The fees have been paid.
I'll make a motion to accept the application for the subdivision, one lot subdivision. Let's say, two lot subdivision. Sorry.
And was that you, Tim? So the motion is to approve as presented the two-lot subdivision application. Motion made by Joe Adaletta, seconded by Tim Young. Do we have any discussion on the motion? I'll go through the roll. Joe Adaletta,
Aye.
Mark Blackmer,
Aye.
Sid Blodgett, Jeff Gordon, aye. Dean Gould.
Aye.
Here. Hughes. Joe Plulak,
Aye.
Dwight Reinowitz,
Aye.
and Timothy Young.
Aye.
That so passes. Now, I guess, are you handling this one or who is?
I only handle what we do here. I'm not the zoning officer.
So you'll have to find out on Monday who's doing what, or if Ashley's coming in how many days, that will have to be figured out upstairs. So, but I will, I don't know when she's coming in or what exact day she might be, but I'll let her know and it can be made certain that it gets followed through. So, okay. That takes us to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 6B. This is 6542206 BLH Properties, 170 Lion Hill Road. This is a 3-lot subdivision. And so that people know, this is a minor subdivision. It doesn't require going to a public hearing unless we so choose it to do that. I am going to state a few things on the record just because I need to have some things in the record. We had tabled this from last month because we needed to wait for Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency to get back to us. There were also a number of corrections that had to be done on the plans. And there were some additional changes that are in the plans. We have received some additional documents as well. I'm going to mention the timeline. Delia, you would pass this out to everybody?
No, I.
Okay, just for me. So I have some in my own here, but otherwise, as far as the timeline that we are required to follow per state statute, the first 65 days without an extension, and we're in the midst of that, is going to end on August 20th, which is after our next meeting. I think our next meeting is the 18th. So we're still within state statute as far as where we stand with this, so we don't need any extensions for this. Some additional items. We have received the revised plans. One thing I'll note for the record is for this revised plan, we actually do have the front sheet says that there's 4 sheets, but actually there's a sheet, I believe 3A and 3B. So that way people will just know that there's actually 5 sheets instead of 4 sheets. We have Delia's memo dated June 21st, Delia's memo dated July 7th. We have a site analysis plan that we've received. We have Ashley's memo dated June 21st. We have an NDDH letter, July 11th. We have the applicant's ENS control bond, July 11th. We have an email from Fire Marshal Barron, June 17th. We do have the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency meeting minutes from July 11th. We have an email from our town highway foreman, July 20th. And you have those, don't you, on the computer, the photos?
Yes.
And then there's photos that I have submitted, including a notation on a map dated July 20th that we can, I didn't make copies of those, because they're color photos, so I tried to save the printer, but we do have them to show, and we'll show them on there. I'll open it up to the applicant or the applicant's representative, and then we'll take it from there. If there's anything you would wish to go through, I just ask that one speak at a time. And please initially identify yourself, so that way we have it in the audio. Is there anything that you're going to be showing, anything on the plans that we need to put up on the screen?
That would be helpful if we could put the plans up. For the record, my name is Paul Archer with Archer Survey and Cater of the Associates, and Phil Harris is the owner of BLH is here. And if we can get the plans, we could go over some of the corrections we did. And one of the big things to note is, like the chair had said, there's pages 3A and 3B. And the only difference between 3A and 3B is there's two different
Can I
scales.
just interrupt you for one quick second? We're trying to see if we can get this to call up on the screen. I don't know why it isn't, so until we can get it up, continue on.
Okay.
We have copies.
And I have two other sets of copies if somebody else would like another
And
set of hard copies.
and Doug,
You can.
and Doug, you have these files as well, correct? To follow along. So we're going to try to see if we can get this shared, but please go ahead.
And again, 3A and 3B are just larger scales than 3. So what happened was when we submitted to the health department on your page 3, one of the comments they came back, they would like it at a different scale. So there's a little more visibility than everything else. And then we threw an analysis page on the back that's not included in the packet, just so that everybody could see an overall picture of everything and how it looks. So, and I can, go over all the little changes that we've made to this plan. Right now, you're looking at an 11-acre piece of property with an existing house on it, which we're proposing to have 2 more additional lots along with the existing house, okay? So one of the big changes not a big change, a minor change that we've done before we go along, and one of the neighbors here, Mrs. Waldron, is here too. She approached Mr. Harris here and is willing to buy a piece of property, that's on Mr. Harris's, that abuts hers, to give her a little buffer. So that, if you looked on the plan, on the subdivision plan, you would see in front of Mrs. Basically to the south of Mrs. Waldron, it's called parcel A. Okay, parcel A is roughly a ½ an acre of land, which we're going to sell to Mrs. Waldron, which will become an additional part of her land. And we decided to do this as part of the subdivision rather than have the subdivision approved, and then we would have to come back to you people for a boundary line modification at that point. So there you can see on their parcel A is going to be sold to Mrs. Waldron. Mrs. Waldron is here with us. The other thing that you can begin to notice a little bit is one of the comments from last month was we added 2, I call them bump outs, but little passing lanes on the long driveway that goes all the way to the back lot. We have added 2 bump outs as requested there. The other thing, if you look at the plan, that you will notice is that we're proposing what I call a French drain, which is going to basically run along the westerly side of that long driveway, which is going to collect all the water coming down the hill and put it into the wetlands there. That was one comment that previously came from the Wetlands Commission that they would like to have seen. So that's why that got added to the plan. The other big change that we did is the grading. We did a grading that at the driveways at the road, where we're going to be collecting all the water prior to getting to the stone wall from our site. So there's going to be a swale there. And if you look on the plan, you can notice that there's 2 pipes that are proposed that are before basically it would be on the westerly side of the stone wall. So the idea here is to collect all water coming down the driveway of our site and gather it before it hits the stone wall. And then we would be basically grading the two driveways, so you're only gonna be talking, 20 feet of driveway, which would be pitched into the existing culvert, which is gonna collect all the water before it gets to the road. And that was one of the big concerns that the Gambrants had, that it came before us and all that, was try to keep the water from going down the driveway. The other big change on the plan from last month was that we were approached by the Gambrants and asked if we would move the driveway 30 feet to the south, okay? Which we actually moved the proposed driveway 35 feet to the south, as from the last time you looked at it. So the driveway has been moved southerly 35 feet. And then the other questions that were brought up were the line of sights on these roads, all right? So we've gone out and they show up better on I think it's the 3B site or the 3A site. You can see the distances that we shot out there. The biggest distance, the one that's the most critical distance, is the first driveway, which would be looking to the north, in which Mr. Gordon actually took some very good pictures to show it. And we've driven up and down that road right now. The best that I can come up with is just before there, when we're looking down there north of the road, the speed limit is 15 miles an hour. Okay, there's a sign that we took a picture of, and we believe the rest of the road is 25 miles an hour. There is no 25-mile-an-hour sign posted on the road. We've called a bunch of people and asked them, and what the rule of thumb is what I was told is if the road is not posted, it is believed to be a 25-mile-an-hour road. So I believe that at one point it is posted 15 miles an hour, but there is no other speed limit posted on Lyons Road. But according to the highway foreman that we got his plan for, he had looked at that a sight line required for a 30-mile-an-hour road is 200 feet, okay? And I believe that our sight line we had, in that direction, we had 300 plus feet in that direction. So that's pretty much the basis of the change. Oh, now you get it up. So that's pretty much the basis of the changes we've done and that we've worked with, and we've tried to accommodate and answer everybody's questions. The last time we were here, like the chair said, we did not have wetlands approval. We have wetlands approval. We have planning and zoning approval. You also asked about an ENS, a costing, we submitted that. So that's there. And I would be willing to answer any questions from anybody if they have any questions or concerns.
Well, I have not concerns, but I have some questions, if you don't mind to go through.
Love to.
You did mention about getting planning and zoning approval. You don't have it yet.
No,
So
wetlands approval.
wetness, but
And I had
so
NDDH.
right. The erosion and sediment control bond, there's one miscalculation. For lot 3B, it says silt fence 150 linear feet at 3 equals 400. That actually should be 450.
Okay,
I believe all the other numbers add up. However, and correct me if I'm wrong, Delia, but I'm going to pull this up. There's a 10% contingency listed. I thought the regulations for subdivision said it had to be 15. Let me see if I can find it here. I'm looking at chapter 4, part 2, A1B. Yeah, it says an erosion and sediment control bond in an amount large enough to cover the cost of an installation, and it goes over plus 15% contingency. You've listed a 10% contingency. It should be 15% for the regulation.
Have no problem modifying.
So technically, we would need to have this revised because for lot 3B and lot 3C, the numbers just need to be fixed, and then the 15% needs to be put in for each one. And then that can actually, I believe those numbers, I had written them down, but the numbers would have to then be corrected to be compliant with the regulation.
Have no problem with the condition of approval for modifying that. If
Well, it wouldn't be a condition of approval, it would be required that we receive a correct
we have no
erosion and
problem.
sediment control bond. So, because that is a requirement of the regulation, the application. So we actually should get a corrected and accurate erosion and sediment control bond that's compliant with the regulation. So I'm mentioning it. Another is, I don't know if we have that, but has the property owner signed the impact statement in the consent form? That came up at the last meeting. I don't know if you have copies of those, because the copies we have didn't show. I don't have the, do you have the file here?
Yeah.
So we can see if it's in there, because it wasn't certain at the last meeting if those were signed by the property owner, especially a consent form. So we just need to make certain that that is actually signed.
I believe it. I was under the impression that everything was signed, so, but if not, we certainly, is property owner is here and have no problem signing.
So I'll just note that for the record, that the copies we have don't list that, and it was discussed at the last meeting, so we should just make certain that if they're not signed, they are signed.
Okay.
So, and that way then, that's compliant. One other thing I had was, I saw you move the lot lines and then the sight lines. Can you tell me how you calculated the sight lines? What was the process that you guys did?
We actually went out there, measured where the center lines of the center, basically how it's done, you measure this, where the center line of the driveway is proposed. You actually move it. We go 10 feet off the edge of the road, and you're basically supposed to shoot a distance at a 40-inch height to see what you could see. And you have to be able, it's not that you have to see the middle of the road, anything like that. You need to see a part of the vehicle that's coming around the corner. So that's what we use to shoot the distance. But it's measured at a 40-inch height, 10 feet off the edge of the road.
And
And
you,
if you're on a state there, it's actually measured off the travel way, which would be the white line, not necessarily the other thing.
okay, yeah, the 10 feet back and the 3.5 feet up seems consistent with various standards, but you guys measured 300 feet,
Correct.
plus minus, I don't know what it was plus minus. But the highway foreman had raised a question
Yep, that's a very
about
good
that.
point. Now,
And I've been out there and looked as well and wasn't certain if I could, if 300 feet was correct or not. And
we can prove that very easily.
right, but as I'm in the midst of saying, if there's some type of, if the highway foreman had raised a question, and if there's any type of concern, and correct me if I'm wrong, Delia, wouldn't this be something that our engineer would verify? Design
Yes.
professionals?
There's a question, you should have your engineer.
Now, can I answer that real quickly?
Well, I'm not yet done, so. So I will get to you, but I'm just trying to finish what I'm saying. So I'm just raising that if there is any question or anything that we need to get clarified, we do then rely upon our engineering firm, that's design professionals, to verify things for us. So I will raise it, and I'm happy to hear, Mr. Archer, what you have to say, but if there's still any question, I for one would advise, and I'm open to what the commission wishes to do, to have design professionals verify the sight line for lot 3B. But please go ahead if you have an answer for that.
If you could, Delia, if you could call up the picture here that Mr. Gordon took, I believe yesterday.
And which number
Could
is
you
that?
Bring it closer so I can see.
Yeah.
what you're talking about?
We can show the picture up.
This one.
And that one
It's
is,
the last 18, I want to believe, the very last one.
yep, that's the last one standing. Well, I didn't go on to the property, but I was at the
Close
edge of
enough.
the road just to get an idea,
Close. Yep,
looking down.
yep. If
We'll
we
show that up there.
we can bring that up, I can show you something very simple. If you, can I walk up and
Please.
walk up and point to this? So,
Yep.
if you look here, what we're saying is, this is the, if I can sit here, this is the drainage ditch that we're talking about, that the water's gonna come down and collect. But real simple, if this is roughly the center line of the driveway, we have two poles here. You got a pole here and you got a pole right here, all right? Those two poles measure 230 feet apart, okay? Our proposed driveway is 65 feet this way of that pole. So as you can see, what you got from pole here to pole there is 230 plus pulling it this way, 65 feet to the center line of the driveway gives you 300 plus feet of sight line. And if you looked at that, if you put it back on the other picture I had, you could see that.
Which other picture do you want to show?
The one that I highlighted.
Oh.
So, and as, like I stated before, I believe that even with your highway foreman stating that he believed that at the 30-mile-an-hour thing, you only needed 200 feet at a 30-mile-an-hour road, I believe us looking down that way, when we're looking down there, we're looking at a 15-mile-an-hour road, not a 30-mile-an-hour road.
I don't agree with you. First of all, having been on that road many times, that 15-mile-per-hour sign, when you're coming around the corner, that's actually for the curve. That 15-mile-per-hour on both sides is before each curve. So when you're driving down, not really south, but trying to head towards kind of the straight runway,
Correct.
then heads to 197, the 15-mile-per-hour one is for the curve. When you go around the curve, it's not 15 miles per hour. You say it's 25, the highway foreman thinks it's 30, but it's not 15. That's just for the curve. And that's
Right,
why
but
there
it's
were
a-
two,
it's a
that's why
15
they were
going both directions.
correct. But once you pass the curve, you're not then, required to go 15. Most people are going to go faster anyway on that road, as we know. So it's not a 15-mile-per-hour when you get past the curve. The one thing I'm just raising is and I'm not saying whether there's anything wrong with your calculation, but we have to do our due diligence. I, for one, would advocate that we get design professionals to verify the sightline for us. If the highway foreman had raised a question about it, plus design professionals can tell us exactly what they feel based upon any standard that's out there, 25 miles per hour, 30 miles per hour, what is considered adequate sightline distance for stopping. So I just raised that for, we can, for what commissioners think, but there still seems to be confusion, at least, on my part. And again, I think it would be helpful for us to get that reviewed. So that's one thing that I'm raising for consideration. The other thing I would raise as well is, I think it would be very helpful to settle some confusion as well, is to do a site walk. I think if we're talking about looking at pictures, I can tell I took pictures to try to be of help for myself, but nothing beats being actually there, see. So another thing I would raise to the commission, so we can better understand, I couldn't really see where the driveway was really staked. I tried to estimate it as best as I could off of, the map that we have. I think it would behoove us to consider a site walk. Go there, see exactly where that driveway is staked to be. I don't know if it's staked or not, but when
It is not state.
right, I couldn't tell yesterday when I was there on the road. And I was there with the map trying to do my best estimate. I think it would behoove us to do a site walk to see it, to make certain that also we feel that we have a better understanding, other than just looking at a map. And I'll raise that as well to the commission to consider. And I'll certainly go with what the commission wishes to.
We'd
do
offer it
that
up there too, not necessarily a site walk, if you choose to do this, that we would go out there and put some stakes where the two driveways are and have a problem with the commission driving by, not necessarily everybody going at once, but feel free at your own leisure to go take a look at where this.
Well, what I'm saying is a formal site walk. That's where the commission has the authority to do it if we feel we need to, is to actually go as a commission. And we're there and we can, it's open to the public, but it's not for public comment at all. So the public can attend but can't speak. It really would be for us to see where that driveway is staked. You'll be there and show it to us and then see exactly. I'm not worried about the sight line looking to the right of the driveway because you got like, a whole runway just shooting off in that direction. Some people use that as a runway, basically, having seen people drive, but it's more looking to the left.
The one driveway
So,
looking
right.
north.
It's the one for lot 3B. So I raised that as well for as a formal commission site visit. That's different from us just trooping by and taking a look. It's a public road. We can do it, and I did. It didn't go onto the property, but it would be more, I'll raise it for the commission. Sometimes seeing this in person as a commission can be very helpful compared to just trying to understand things on a two-dimensional map when you're trying to visualize things three-dimensionally. So I'll raise those two items for consideration. Joe?
Yeah, I would be in favor of that. Especially if you stake out the driveways ahead of time so that we know exactly where they are. I had one other question, since we don't have a profile of the driveways. Are you gonna actually have a dip in the driveway then before you get to the main road?
No, the pipe, you saw the actual,
I see where you're putting the pipe.
the drainage swale. The pipe will fit in the drainage swale and the driveway will go right over the top of the.
Yeah, well, how are you gonna grade the driveway so that
Pitch it. Because
you're
we're
gonna
gonna,
pitch the driveway?
yeah, and we're gonna collect all the water prior to it getting there, coming down the driveway. All the water is being collected prior to the stone wall, prior to it even getting there.
All right, so you're gonna grade the driveway such that it won't just shoot right out onto the road.
It will not shoot on our road, correct?
All right,
I'll just ask what others think about a site walk and also design professionals. Joe?
Given that we're talking about measurements and regulatory conditions, I'd be more inclined to ask design professionals to view the plan, do the sightline measurement versus the commission is always good. I like a site walk, but we wouldn't really be measuring anything. We would just be really looking at conditions and making some adjustments based on visual assumptions. Whereas I think design professionals, if asked, would actually make more quantitative type measurements of pipelines. Since this seems to be a concern for safety issues, I'd be more inclined to have design professionals review this.
Doug, you have your hand up. Did you have something about this site walkers, design professionals, or did you want to discuss something else? I'm just trying to keep consistent on the topics.
I didn't have my hand up.
Oh, it's up on this, it's up virtually, so we'll have to take it now.
I'm having ice cream.
What do others think then about site walk, design professionals? Joe?
Is the sidewalk intended to just look at the driveway, the proposed driveway locations and potential sightlines from those locations?
It could be, unless people want to troop on the property. I don't have any issue about what's otherwise proposed on the plan, just more to see. If people want to do a site walk, we would formally schedule it. If people wanted to go themselves and take a look, there's nothing stopping people. We would just need either way to have the driveway staked to show where that driveway comes out.
You only really need the one driveway state.
Correct. The one we're talking about is for lot 3B.
3B.
So it's up to what the commission wishes to do. I think it would be helpful to at least have the driveway staked and we do a site walk, or people, commissioners on their own go, separate from design professionals review. David?
I agree with Joe that we should just let design professionals do it, so then it's official, and then have the driveway stake. If we want to drive out and look at it, we can do
Okay.
that. We don't have to have an official sidewalk.
What do others think about that? Fine with that? We would,
agree with that as well.
Okay. Just want to make certain, don't see Doug's hand up.
So do you
Okay.
need a motion for, to,
To go to design professionals, we probably should, shouldn't we? To go to design professionals, we should.
Sure.
Because that way it'll be clear on the record, because we're going to be spending some, we'll need to spend some money on design professionals or however that happens. We do, but still we need to have a motion to show that we've done it. So this would be, have design professionals. Okay, so it's, if you wanted to make a motion or someone did, I'll go accordingly.
sure, I'll move that we have design professionals review this application, in particular to look at driveway onto Lion Road and sidelines and confirm speed limits on roads that may be undefined speed, unmarked speed limits.
So you're talking about lot 3B or?
Yes,
Okay,
I don't know if we want to limit it to just 3B.
doesn't have to. I mean, however we wish to do it and have design professionals take a look. But
Don't get the whole plan in.
they're going to no matter what, so. And is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, so motion by Joe Adaletta, seconded by David Morse to have design professionals review the plans, including looking at the driveway sightlines. Is that correct?
Correct. And the road speed limits.
Okay. Yeah, you had something?
Since there's proposed drainage for the driveway, and that has been a concern, do you want them just to review the application? The whole plan?
Well, I thought, isn't that, you had mentioned that, but said that also make certain they pay attention to the sightlines.
Right.
So
the
that
whole
would
plan.
include,
Okay.
yeah, they're gonna get the whole plan, so we wouldn't be giving them just a bit and a piece, so. Okay.
Now, would this be back in 2 weeks or would this be next month?
Our next monthly meeting is August 18th. That's our next monthly meeting. Our business meetings are the third Thursday of every month. Is that the 18th? I think it might be. Trying to do it in my head. Yeah, we take care of these on the third Thursdays. That's the monthly meetings. So, one other item I just wanted to raise is on page 4. You actually have to put in, you just need to make certain you have on all the sheets, other than they don't need that on the front sheet, I believe. But we do need to make certain that the sheets do show the signature block that's required.
I thought all of them did.
Page 4,
Is that a detail sheet? Like
I don't see it, but it does require every sheet.
signature block?
The blocks that we usually have.
Yeah, just like the ones I have on the other page?
Yep. Yep, that way it takes care of that, so. Dave?
My only other concern is, when I fight with, is that on a long gravel driveway, when you grade it, it's, water's gonna run off to the side years, and then after a few years of driving over it, unless you maintain that, the water's not gonna run off the side, you're gonna get a couple of gullies where traffic is, and it's gonna shoot straight over into the road. Unless you have some kind of a swale or dip before it gets to the road. I mean, I have a long, gentle slope driveway, and it runs, if I don't maintain something to divert the water, it runs into the road.
That's the whole reason why we put the swale prior to the stone wall before it reaches the.
So is there an actual dip in drive where it goes down and then goes back up?
Right, well, so the swale, so if you looked at, you can see it right up in here. See how we're proposing right in this area, a whole swale that's gonna take all this water here, that's gonna keep it from hitting this stone wall here. We're gonna keep all this water coming down this driveway into this swale that's gonna catch it right here. We're showing the pipe under the driveway right here, with the swale going this way.
So I'm asking the same question Joe asked earlier, is there actually gonna be, the driveway gonna come down and then there's gonna be a slight incline before it comes up to the road?
There would probably be a slight incline going down at this point before it gets to the road. Right, we're gonna show, there's a bump here, if you could show.
So there's gonna be extra swale in the driveway. Okay, that's my concern.
One thing, we'll just run through the vote for design professionals so we can just finalize that. So I'll go through the row. Joel Adaletta,
Aye.
Mark Blackmer,
Aye.
Sid Blodgett,
What?
Jeff Gordon, aye. Dean Gould,
Aye.
David Morse,
Aye.
Joe Palula,
Aye.
Dwight Reinowitz,
Aye.
Timothy Young.
Aye.
Who will take care of contacting design professionals? You will,
Who said that?
David Morse did. So we'll contact design professionals. So. Anything else from commissioners? Was there anything from you, Delia? I know you had some memos with things addressed.
Changes are made to the plans.
Okay. Anything else from commissioners? Just want to make sure I don't miss. Online. Okay. You have anything else, Mr. You wanted to talk with us about on this or anything, any additional? I know you provided us a bunch of stuff, so thank you.
You brought 2 copies. So you have everything for the file.
You want both?
And this is the form we need your client to sign.
The one,
This is-
is that this one also the other one? That statement? Yes, we need both of those signed by the property owner. Thank you.
You're playing right now?
That works. Especially the consent, which is important for us to have on file. So thank you for taking care of that today for us.
I'll revise. Now, Delia, am I sending these to design professional or are you sending them?
You can send them to me and I'll send them to them. This is the.
Okay, Delia will handle whatever needs to be done. If there's not anything else from commissioners, we would need to then have a motion to table to our next monthly business meeting. Was that you, Tim, or you? That was. And who seconded? Was that you, Tim, or I saw several hands. Okay. That would be, so I guess the 18th is correct. That was on the month. Okay, so a motion made by Sid Blodgett, seconded by Timothy Young to table this agenda item to our August 18th monthly business meeting. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Joe Adaletta.
Aye.
Mark Blackmer.
Aye.
Sid Blodgett.
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, aye. Dean Gould.
Aye.
Jeff Mahan, he's not here. David Morse.
Aye.
Joe Palula.
Aye.
Dwight Reinowitz.
Aye.
Timothy Young.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you. We'll see you next month.
We will be here.
If you could possibly give me a date as to when you would like the driveway staked out by, we'll have it staked out.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, the next agenda item is, which one is, oh, so this is SP 6410625M, Jason and Jamie Bosley, 290 Route 169, Rusty Relic. This is to add a retail space to barn. This is a public hearing, so there's a few things I'm going to need to state for the record, so bear with me, so that way we can go through this. I did, for those who aren't familiar with the public hearing, we do have handouts in the back outlining what a public hearing is. I know the commission knows. This public hearing has some formality to it. This is an opportunity for the commission and for the applicant's representatives to have discussions with us, also staff. But this is an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions or provide comments. You're not obligated to speak. Some people have chosen to submit things in writing to us. Those things are noted I'll note them in the record. Commissioners have received copies, so we don't go through and read every single thing line by line. We'd be here for a couple of days. But we do, anything that needs to be brought to our attention has to be done during the public hearing. Once the public hearing closes, no one, including the applicant, can provide us anything more. Public hearing closes, it's purely for the commission to deliberate and to make a decision. We do have some rules of the public hearing, which is if you do wish to be recognized, you actually have to speak that's to something that is germane to this application. If it isn't germane to the application, I'll have to rule you out of order. We do grant people 5 minutes to speak for the first time. That the applicant is different because the applicant does have more time because it's the applicant's application. If you wish to speak for a second time, you have to have something new to present to us. If you are going to say the same thing, I have to rule you out of order. To speak for the second time, we grant 2 minutes. Just because we need to make certain that we can facilitate things to the flow of the meeting. We do try to make certain we can grant opportunities to people to speak for the first time if they so wish, including folks who are online. And we'll try to keep track of that. I will note that that this is a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. This is not a Historic District Commission meeting. This commission is not going to get into items that are in the purview of the Historic District Commission. If they're starting to be brought up too much, I'm going to have to rule that out of order because that's not what this application is. I assume the Historic District Commission has met or will meet to attend to what's within their jurisdiction. That is for their meeting. Things that are within our jurisdiction, for example, the use of the barn inside is purely our jurisdiction as planning and zoning. We can certainly speak to that. We also are attending to planning and zoning, the town's zoning regulations. So I just want to make certain that we're clear on that because we can't start getting into things that are outside of our purview because then it starts to get into a de facto meeting of some other municipal agency. And that starts blurring legal lines and we can't be doing that outside of other municipal agencies. Rules are there if you wanted copies of them, and I'm happy to explain them further. We do go in a certain order. I'll allow the applicant to present the application. We should be able to get it up on the screen. And then I'll ask staff if staff has anything to add. And then I do open it up to commissioners. And then after that, I do open it up to the public. There are some things I have to read into the record because this is the public hearing. So I know a number of these, but I have to ask them anyway. The fees are paid, is my understanding, yes.
That was something Ashley reviewed, but I
Yep.
believe they were.
Yep. It's a complete application as far as we know, unless there's other items we feel we need to get for any particular reason. The public hearing notices were issued. Do you have those?
Yes. It's in the.
I'll just state this for the record. So, and while we're doing that, I will note that there were required to be 2 public hearing signs, one on Route 169, one on Child Hill Road, and it's been verified that indeed those were posted as required. And then we'll just note for the record, the public hearing notices that were required to do by state statute. So the one went into the Norwich Bulletin on July 10th, one went into the Woodstock Villager, July 15th. So we have met that. And then I'm just going to note for the record some of the documents we have. And then I'll mention the timeline. We have an application. We have Delia's memos of June 18th and July 6th. We have Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes of October 15, 2020. That was the initial special permit that was reviewed and approved with a number of conditions. We have Fire Marshal Barron's email, July 7th. We have a letter that is undated, unsigned, and anonymous, but we'll note that we did get it that way. We have a letter from Gail Usher, July 16th, and there was a revision, and that was received on July 17th. We have a letter from Jean McClellan on July 16th. We have a letter from Bruce and Alexandra Lyman on July 17th. A letter from Mary and Dan Atwood on July 18th. Letter, pictures, and a video submitted by William Rowinski on July 18th. Letter from David Stone and Jennifer Watson, July 19th. Letter from Jason and Jamie Bolsoley, July 18th. We have a letter from Kerry Mullen that was received, didn't state the date, but it was received July 21st. We have an NDDH letter from June 5th. And we have a special permit criteria statement from the applicants listed as July 20th. Those are the documents that we have, that I have listed that we have received, so we will note that. And then the timeline for this per state statute, we've received this application and public hearing is opening within the time frame. And right now, we're well within the initial 35 days of the public hearing. That 35 days ends on August 25th, which would encompass our August 18th meeting. That doesn't include any extensions that are requested and thereby granted. So we're within the timeline. Is this for the file or can I have this? Thank you. So we'll note that. I will open it up to the applicants or the applicants' representatives. You're not required to say anything if you don't want to. This is an opportunity to present your application to us and certainly feel free. Thank you for being here tonight. And if you can state your name for the record, because we have to record it.
Jason Bosley, owner of West Valley. So I would just like to say that we're excited for this project. We hired Matt Frederick, a talented contractor. He specializes in restoring homes. We hired a top-notch engineer. I know you have some questions about parking. Will the barn make business better or be busier? Yes. But we're gonna take our employee parking. My wife and I parking, we're gonna park in the back driveway, right from the back gate. So that's gonna open up 5 or 6 more spots. So there was questions about plantings. And the rain garden, was it complete? Questions come up. We reached out early in the year to contractors, and we didn't really get a response, or people were too busy. Woodstock is holding $12,000 bond, so this project will be done in a timely manner. You know, there was some questions about stuff outside and noise. You know, stuff outside. You have barrels with chains going through, so our customers know where to go. That was they call us in the store, they park in the parking lot, hey, where do we go in? So, yeah, once the barn is open, a lot of that, it's really just a little bit of decorations. We have a few wagons out there, which that's approved already. Birdhouses. I know we talked about historical district. I don't know if I can bring that up real quick.
I would say you can, but I wouldn't get too much into the historic district commission.
They always say I have not been compliant. And that is correct. I haven't been compliant because of the rudeness, unprofessional emails and verbal contact. And so just wanted to let that be clear. And those emails got forwarded to an official and that got dealt with. This week, these letters coming in, I feel like my character a little bit. So, I just wanted to run through. First initial statement when we opened the store was the integrity of Woodstock Hill is very important. Integrity of Woodstock Hill. Second statement, Jason Bosley cannot be trusted because he put stuff outside. Said he wasn't supposed to.
So, you know what some of that stuff was? 200 turkeys in a freezer. Donated by me and my wife. So people would have a good Thanksgiving. We had 7 drop leaf tables full of school supplies. So kids could come pick out their lunch boxes and pencils, backpacks. I was on social media once, Putnam Church needed a Santa Claus a week before Christmas, special needs children. They're gonna have to cancel the event. I didn't. Went down to Woodstock Firehouse, promoted their food drive, went on Facebook, talked to the chief, talked to the fire chief, and promoted that, and Toys for Tots. Biggest thing that I'm very proud of, the church on the side of us raised 6,500 pounds stuff to go to Ukraine. I overheard from the customers. They didn't know how to get it there. I brought it that weekend. So I just wanted to defend myself a little bit as far as, I don't need a pat on the back, but I want to be treated fairly. And attack my character to say that, you know, I'm a liar and we can't be trusted because I put some stuff outside. It isn't fair in my view. So, on a different note, thank you, everybody. Matt, Frederick, if you have any questions on the barn as far as inside, what, you know, you'd be happy to answer any of that.
Thank you for being here tonight. I'll open up, you have reviewed this, Delia?
Yes.
Anything from a staff perspective on this that you want to let us know? I know you have some memos, but anything from your perspective?
I have a memo I wrote on June 8th where I asked some questions about the application and they provided the details in their written correspondence, and they've also, I've discussed it with them, so I think now that I have more information, I have the answers to the questions. If you want anything clarified, we can go over it.
So as far as you're concerned then, from your memo where you had a number of items, you feel your things have been addressed?
Yes.
Okay. And anything else from your standpoint?
I understand your previous approval did not allow for a dumpster, but I think it'd be very reasonable to expect that a business would need a dumpster, as does the church and the academy and the Pink House and the other church and the Orchard. I'm sure they all have dumpsters. And so I think it'd be very reasonable to allow them to have a dumpster, and they could put it behind the building if that's the issue.
That's in your memo, correct?
Well, I discussed the dumpster, but I did recommend that I thought that would be reasonable.
Thank you. Anything else?
No.
Just want to make sure that I don't miss Commissioner online. I'll open up to the commission. Any question? What?
Are we doing the public hearing or?
This is the public hearing.
I know, but anybody from the public?
Going to do commissioners
Okay.
and then I'll go to the public. I'll open up to commissioners. If commissioners have any questions or Joe, did you have something?
Well, I'll just raise an observation. I think during the initial hearings for the original special permit hearings, there was a sense, my sense that I took from the commission was that there was a concern about the retail space expanding beyond a small business type operation on the hill in the historic district. And I think there were a number of people who spoke at that time about encouraging small businesses but not looking forward to excessive traffic or noise or a lot of displays around on the yard. And hence some of the conditions put on to limit what could be displays in the front yard. I think some of that sense has expanded in this feeling that there are artifacts widely spread around the yard. Project creep, so to speak, of music being played, which was not part of the original conversation with the applicant. And I think those are some things that are raising concerns from people in the area, and hence the letters that we're seeing. So that's my observation for now.
Thank you, Joe. I have just a couple of questions. My understanding is there's, in a sense, two parts to this application, Mr. Beausoleil. One is the actual use inside the barn, which is purely a planning and zoning commission jurisdiction. That my understanding is that the barn needs to be fixed or repaired, and you're looking then to use the barn for some retail space. In that, I'm assuming after the barn is repaired and fixed. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I know one thing. So the engineer, I wanted to stress that this barn, if it's not repaired, this barn, you will sign off that demo on this barn within 5 years. The sill plate's completely rotted and the footing is washed out. So I guess that being said, it'd be a really, not a smart financial move to store this barn. It need not make retail space on it. Okay, because this barn project is 3 times what I spent on this barn. So it'd be really foolish investment. I cannot make it retail.
Thank you. And then the other part, my understanding is, looking at the plans, is that on the front of the barn, which then faces the road, is to put what, a overhang or a lean-to or something. That's an additional part of what's being proposed. Is that correct, Mr. Beausoleil? That part would seem to be within the Historic District Commission jurisdiction, which is a separate agency from us. Okay, I just wanted to make certain it was on the record as far as just not retail space, but what were the parts being done. And the other question I have, and I think I know the answer, but I just want to make certain I'm clear. You had mentioned about employee parking, which is happening now in the parking spaces that are there, moving stuff then to that back part, which onto 169, there was that gate that was required to be.
So the gate will still be
So-
shut, which is gonna park it that.
But the parking would go there, thus that would open up more parking spots than you're currently otherwise using. So as far as customer parking spots, you're not looking to build anymore, like expand the parking lot, is that correct?
Correct.
So you're gonna keep the existing footprint of the parking lot,
Yeah.
just move employee parking to open up more spots that otherwise the employees are parking in.
Yes.
But the parking for the employees are gonna be in the back.
Yeah.
So there, so you wouldn't necessarily readily see it. I guess it's gonna be in the back there. In the back of the White House, just not in back of the barn, is that correct?
Correct.
I see, okay. I just want to make certain I was clear on what's happening with that parking, so the parking lot isn't expanding.
Yeah.
It's just who can use the spaces there, I see, okay. All right, thank you. Anything from any other, yes, Sid?
I
Certainly.
think what Joe alluded to is a quick read of the comments that we received. Many of them seem to be concerned with the appearance and the outside display of items, which some feel is in violation of the existing agreement. I personally, maybe the commission, maybe the neighbors would like to see that barn retained, which requires restoration. I'm sure requires a lot of money. However, that large of a building seems like it could, perhaps should be utilized for retail. Now, if everything could be kept inside the barn, unlike what I've witnessed now, that might solve a lot of the issues that the neighbors have and the historic commission has. I know we really don't regulate aesthetics or appearance, but and I didn't have a chance to look into this, but in our approval of this, did we make reference that all the historic commission's requirements must be met?
No, we had received during the process, once they eventually became available, the minutes of the Historic District Commission, and then there was final stuff we did receive, and that was, we had tabled the public hearing to be able to allow that to be taken in, but no, there was no condition relative to the Historic District Commission's requirements needed to be met. I don't know if we can do that, though. But
Yeah.
I don't know how that works, because
Hard to do that.
their jurisdiction is different from ours, and in some regards, our jurisdiction can supersede depending upon what the particular item is. So I don't know, maybe you know, Delia, do you seem to follow up? You know, if we didn't put it into the conditions, but are we allowed to do that?
If it's not your purview,
I don't
I
see
don't
how
know
we.
that you could expand your authority just because another district in town, which is not a zoning district, you still don't have authority over the appearance of the property.
It may also be akin to like inland wetlands. So we receive their word, but they're the ones that deal with enforcing their approvals and their rules. We don't enforce those. So we may say they have to be compliant, but we can't enforce those per se. But legally, I don't know the extent to what we can do in that regard.
I guess
Mr. Chairman, just real quick, I do recall we did have conversations about items outside. And, you know, we did allow for some decoration. I don't recall any discussion from the public or anybody else about music. So I don't.
Yeah, there was no expectation at that point, or no
Right.
indication that there would be any either.
Because we have a condition that says it's not allowed to have retail displays on the lawn, yard, and driveway, except for the displays of vehicles / carts that are drawn by livestock. That was one of the conditions. That's it.
So I suppose, so just to summarize, it seems like a current owners, Beausoleil's, and all future owners could use the inside of the barn for retail. That might solve, that would, I think, enable them to move all the outside stuff inside and allow a greater floor space to bring in more things to improve the business and ideally fund the restoration of the farm.
I agree, it would be a shame for Woodstock and that property to lose that barn. Really, quite a bit of wood to the area.
Joe?
I was going to comment that I thought in areas where there's the Woodstock Historic Commission had to give approval for any building changes that fall within their purview, the zoning commission would have to await their approval, much like we do NDDH or to ensure that whatever P&Z is approving is compliant with other functions.
We did during the special permit last time wait to get them to finalize. I think there were some changes in the plans.
Right.
The retail use, the use inside the barn, that's a zoning matter.
Right, but I thought before us was also the barn design.
Right, so there's two. One is the use, the retail use inside, which is purely our jurisdiction. Then there's the outside front, where I guess there's that lean-to, a porch overhang, which is part of these plans that we're reviewing, but that also would fall within historic district commission, I believe. So that part would, and they would have to, whatever mechanism they have, enforce whatever conditions they had separately imposed. But the retail use inside, That's an additional item, even though it's
Mhm.
part of this, and that's our jurisdiction. Sid,
Can I ask a question of the restoration?
please, if you can just state your name for the record, thank you for being here tonight.
No problem. Matt Frederick, Quiet Corner Restoration.
Thank you. So the proposed lean-to or porch out front,
Right.
is that required to structurally rehab barn, or is that simply an add-on for not something that the owners wanted?
It's not structurally required.
I'm sorry, what's that?
It's not structurally required, no. But there are aspects in the bottom sill plate of that, of all around the barn is completely gone. So the way we lift the building is from the outside, we kind of push it up. So it was kind of, what we're doing is, it was kind of a value added detail, since we're already putting structure up there to lift and repair the barn. We could then add a little bit more space or overhang, and for whatever their use might be, you know, especially since it also helps shed water away from the barn. So it is a value added feature. Is it absolutely necessary? No, but it will keep water away from the barn, water from freezing and doing any damage to the siding or any furthermore damage.
Thank you.
Anything else from Commissioner Joe?
I had a question about the septic system. That's the way the septic system was when you bought the property?
Yes, yes.
So you haven't made any,
Renewed commercial septic system that Woodside County installed.
yeah, it looks like it's commercial. It's got a grease trap even.
Yeah. Okay,
Regarding the barn. Do you intend to ever put a toilet in there?
no,
Okay, no sink, no toilet? Because if you did, you'd have to hook into the system.
yeah, no, there's no intention of that at all. So,
Okay.
Thank you. Anything from any other commissioners? Yes, Sid.
Mr. and Mrs. Bosley, the lean-to in front of the barn, is it your intent to display things outside the barn underneath the lean-to?
well, I mean, you're totally right about the stuff that we have outside. Now, we can come to a decision, once that barn is done, that stuff, that's like decorations, because that, it's not retail, I can bring it in. It'd be 10,000 square feet of retail. My intention was maybe take my old truck, park it under the lean-to, and maybe just get a couple cool gas pumps lit up. I'm excited now, just like a couple of cool gas pumps, as you pull in, with the globes on them, on both sides of the truck, and it's great.
So you say the barn is about 10,000 square feet?
It would be 10,000 square feet inside.
And what's your current display, say inside the house, floor area roughly?
4,500 square feet,
4,000? Okay, thanks.
every inch.
Anything otherwise from commissioners? Okay, I'll open up to, did you have anything else, Delia, staff, before I open up to the public?
Jeff,
Oh, and then Delia, then Doug. Go ahead, Delia.
I was just gonna explain that I think there's some confusion between the historic district and the planning and zoning commission. I think the only overlap is that it's on the same property. The two different commissions have completely different authority. Planning and zoning is about the use and the location of the use. They don't look at the materials that are used or that kind of stuff, and the historic district commission does. So they are talking about the same property, but they're not talking about the same thing.
Thank you, Delia. Doug, did you have something?
yes,
Go ahead.
I just ask a question. I think the original application only referred to using 2,000 square feet of the first floor of this building as retail space. Is that your understanding, Jeff or Delia?
About the house.
You're talking about what's in the house itself?
Correct. I think the retail was strictly limited to the first floor.
Mr. Bosley, is it?
Yeah,
Where's the
you know
retail?
what that was when we first moved in, we only had, Mr. Barron had to approve the upstairs. He had to go get a special permit for that. So you're right, because we were able to open the downstairs floor for the first
Hey.
couple months. And
So,
then,
Miss-
with that approval, we were able to carry it upstairs. But it
But
had
I-
changed up the stairs.
Thank you, Doug.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think our approval was strictly for the first floor. And I think the site plan that was developed, I think there was discussions about parking. And we asked the engineer on the original application to provide us with some kind of measure of what is appropriate parking for a 2,000 square foot building, retail space. Now we're having an application presented us with 10,000 square feet. And I don't see any comments about or any discussions of the adequacy of the parking. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed.
As far as what was actually approved prior, only the first floor versus the 2 floors and the parking, is that correct, Doug? That you were
Well,
mentioning?
Now you have an applicant that's proposing 10,000 square feet of retail space, but nowhere in the application does it address whether there's adequate parking for 10,000 square feet of retail space. And I think that needs to be addressed by the applicant, and I think it's going to make an impact on his site plan.
I don't know, Mr. Bosley, is anything that you
Well,
wanted to
yeah,
speak to
I
as
mean,
far as the
downstairs-
parking?
Downstairs is more or less gonna be our storage, for our furniture orders. We're gonna need a spot to, so, I say 10,000 square feet, but it's not gonna be all retail. We do have adequate parking, I mean, just because we're adding more retail to the barn doesn't mean our parking lot's not.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Doug.
we're asking our engineer on another project to give us their expertise on a sight line, on a driveway sight line. And here we have a proposal in front of us that having a significant expansion of the retail space there. And I think it's a reasonable request of the commission to the applicant that they demonstrate that they have adequate parking, not from just the applicant, but from an expert, an engineer, so that they can give us their opinion. And if need be, we can get design professionals' opinion or our engineer to review that.
We did have design professionals review this previously.
Correct.
So if we were to have them reviewed again, they would be following through on their prior review and telling us what they think is going on now.
And Mr. Chairman, I would request that we review our original approval, because I'm pretty sure the original approval was just for the first floor retail. It did not include the second floor retail. Now, there may have been an approval by the fire marshal, but that's not an approval for an amendment to a special permit. I'm pretty sure our special permit limited it to the first floor space.
That we can look into that. I'm trying to look through the files
Yeah,
that I have, and I'm not seeing that right now, but we can certainly get that question answered, Doug, as far as what was up. So I guess the issue is we would need to get that clarified, which we can do, but also what the commission wants to do relative to design professionals. You're talking about having design professionals review, Doug, about parking?
Well, right at the moment, I don't think you have a complete application. I don't think you have an application that clearly demonstrates what the applicant is planning on doing on this property. He's made a couple of comments tonight about what some of the space is going to be used for storage, some of the space is going to be used as retail. I think it has to be clearly specified and shown on the plan exactly what the space is, so that it can be clear for someone that tries to enforce the special permit conditions in the future, exactly what was approved. And I also think the site plan has not been adjusted to accommodate the increase in the square footage of the retail space. And I think that site plan needs to be addressed show that it can accommodate the additional retail space that they're proposing.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Mr. Bosolai, did you have something? Then I'm going to continue to move
I
forward.
get my occupancy from the building official. If it wasn't regulated, I could have retail upstairs. You know, him and the fire marshal both came up and did an inspection. My occupancy for retail upstairs and downstairs. I don't think he's accurate at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Delia, you had a question or a comment?
What time did, or what was the date or approximate date that you got the approval from the fire marshal?
You don't have, if you don't know, we can always find that.
I can find it out for you. I can go on.
We can get that we can ourselves get that, you know, from the offices, so. Well, Doug has raised about design professionals, so I'll open it up further to commissioners as far as what does the commission think relative to design professionals. Doug's raised it, so what do others think about it?
I think that he raises a good point. If you're going to increase retail sales area, then you're anticipating more customers, they need more parking. And we just need to confirm that there's adequate parking. I mean, it was a condition of the first time we went around, he's going to make it bigger. There's going to be more customers, there's going to be more cars. I mean, that's the goal. I mean, I understand that, but we just have to make sure there's parking. We don't want people parking on the road. And then finding out exactly how much retail space is going to be added and how much is storage. Make sure we're meeting the requirements of the original permit and we're adequately addressing this permit.
Thoughts for others? Mark?
Do we need design professionals to come in, or is there a set standard for so many square feet of business or are there any regulations? And how much parking space is required for a certain size?
We don't have those parking regulations. In our regulations, at times we relied upon design professionals as our engineer to provide us that input as far as, you know, handicap parking, adequacy of parking and things like that, but we ourselves don't have specific regulations on parking. With Sid then, Joe?
Being a safety issue, I think it makes sense to have design professionals look at it. However, I'm very cautious about overbuilding parking lots. I mean, I think for decades throughout Connecticut, retail establishments have been required to create these massive parking lots for like the busiest day of the year. But I think the thought now is shifting more towards trying to minimize them. So if we could take the design professionals' recommendations, grain of salt in perspective, in light of the fact that it is a historic district, and maybe the maximum number of parking spots really isn't needed, especially on a sensitive site like that.
Joe, do you have something?
I was just going to agree with the sense of having design professionals review it and use standards that I'm pretty sure exist for average number of parking spots for retail size and types of retail businesses. I also understand Sid's point of view. We don't necessarily want to have 50 parking spot parking area set aside just because that's what a standard for guidelines suggest. We need to take it with a little judgment, but 15 cars or 15 spots may be too small for expanded business use. And I think the comment about having a building official and a fire marshal approve a certain space is not necessarily the same thing as having special permit modification
Delia, and then did you have something, Troy?
Yes.
Delia?
I had two things. The first one was, I haven't worked in the town as a zoning officer for 4 years, so I don't know what happened there. But with the turnover of zoning officers, maybe there was some confusion, or maybe the building official didn't know that they had to make sure that that was approved by the zoning officer, or when necessary by the commission. And the other thing was, when you asked design professionals, you could let them know that you would like to minimize parking to a reasonable level, not to encourage overbuilding, and perhaps looking at pervious parking surfaces, which allows for, it could have grass growing through it, and from a distance, it looks like a lawn.
And I think the points that are being raised about parking is good. I think we may get some quote unquote standard to say, you know, you need 40 parking spots. Well, that may sound nice and they even look nice on a plan, but in reality, you know, of where this is, we don't want to, you know, turn things more and more into a big parking lot. That's also a big expense to have to undergo to do. So I do agree, we're gonna have to take that with a grain of salt and really use some common sense there, you know, to see what really is needed. Maybe 15 is adequate, I don't know. But we will have to take that with a bit of a grain of salt as far as what we get back. But, you know, if we feel we do want to get design professionals to weigh in, to let us know, then we can certainly do that and see where we are, especially since we don't have standards in our regulations about parking. That way, if that just needs to be addressed, it can be addressed and then have a follow-up discussion regarding it. Sounds like we are going to need to get some clarification about the prior approval, first floor versus first and second floor, and what other town departments have done relative to their reviews. Those I don't have files on. So it sounds like we'll have to get clarification on that, which we could easily do. Joe Poole?
Yeah, I agree with Sid and Delia that not only should design professionals tell us how many parking spots are needed, but to make them as pervious as possible and landscape. You know, the rain garden that they're doing, I've seen rain garden type ditches alongside of gravel driveways or crushed stone driveways. So there's a lot of things you can do from a landscaping standpoint and still have parking here without doing bituminous concrete.
If we were to want to have design professionals review, we should have a motion and take a vote to say, yes, we want to authorize, you would be the one to contact design professionals. We have to give them the plan and then they would do their review and get to us. So we would need a motion.
I'll move that we have design professionals.
Oh, Mark. So motion by David Moore, seconded by Mark Blackmer to request design professionals review. We're asking to review about parking. And about the, if there is going to be any expansion of the parking, about what would be pervious options. And see what they get back to us about. Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, we'll have to go through the roll.
Just one question.
Yes.
Do we need to know the additional retail space before we have design professionals to do this? I mean, are you going to add in 10,000 square feet of retail space or somebody's storage? We don't have, the plans aren't very.
Well,
Mr. Bosley?
you know, I wanted to get it approved for the whole barn, so I wouldn't have to come back at one point. You know, the first couple of years downstairs would be storage. But it, you know, if things change, I wanted to make another room downstairs. I just would like to get it all done. In case I wanted to make changes, I could do it. You know, so I don't have to come back. I just figured it'd be easier to get approval of all retail in the entire barn. And we make changes if I need to make changes, you know. But the first 2 years, the retail will just be upstairs.
I mean, upstairs in the house, not the barn. But you're asking for right now to give yourself that option.
Give the option.
Okay, I understand. And we would then, if that's what's being asked, we do then have to review that. So that's why we're discussing about design professionals, because we ourselves don't have parking regulations. So we would have to have design professionals review to get some input, and then we discuss it. That's the motion on the table. Joe?
If I could just clarify, with the barn intention, you're talking about the lower level, the basement. And,
Correct, the lower level.
okay, and then the main floor,
Oh, there's only 2 floors.
only 2, okay, it sounded like there was a second
No.
floor that you were planning, like actually.
No, it's 2 floors. So there's gonna be a stairway coming up, and the retail will be upstairs.
Okay, what's upstairs? But I'm picturing the doorway going in is the ground floor, the barn door. That's the ground
Correct.
floor.
And then there is a stairway in the back.
That
Um,
goes down,
It goes up.
The hayloft.
so the hayloft will be a second, an additional retail.
The hayloft will be the retail.
Will be the retail. So downstairs would just be storage the first couple of years.
And there is no basement. It's solid.
That's what
It
I'm-
sits, it sits bank high, but it's all solid fill in there.
Okay, I didn't understand that, okay.
But when you're talking about the first couple of years, you would then be thinking of expanding retail into that main floor?
It's an option. I just want it to be, it'd be easier if we get approved for the whole bunch. So, there's an option that I could do. If I grow even more, that's my plan. Like, get more inventory and be able to make that decision without coming back. It just that'd be easier to get it all approved, and, if I get some more money, I can build on that.
So the 10,000 square feet you're talking about would be
Cover
the
whole
entirety, but the hayloft and the main floor. That you would then over time look to try to expand into. So you're requesting the 10,000 square feet retail of the barn now, but your planning is to work your way into that depending upon what's up.
Right.
Okay, so I understand that. Okay,
Upstairs square footage.
It's 3,600 square feet, plus there's,
okay.
it's hard to describe it, but the posts go up, so there's that extra, there's like a small loft within the loft, so that's where you get the 10,000.
So
It'd be 3,600 square feet,
Okay.
top and bottom, and then you're gonna get the extra space on that you were gonna do some display stuff.
that is effect. Think about that comment. With parking. It's not, to 10,000 wouldn't be right away.
But still, if it's for 10,000, we're required to plan for it. We would have to be thinking of it. Mark, about the motion?
So it's 10,000 additional above the 4,000. So it's really design professionals. We're asking them how much parking spaces, how many parking spaces required for 14,000 square feet.
Including the house.
Including others, because that'd be, we want to know,
Correct.
we need to know how many parking spaces required. If you have 4,000 in the house and we're adding 10, so it's. This question's gonna be, if we had standards for it, it's 14,000 square feet.
And design professionals would then provide a review.
Mr. Chairman,
We'll have to wait. Doug, did you have something about the motion?
I have something about the discussion, and I'm struggling. We're asking design professionals to do a review, but we don't have plans in front of us for them to review. And I don't think it's appropriate for our engineer to be telling us what's parking is required for this building. I think that's the applicant's engineer to present to us a plan of what they think is appropriate for parking for the space that they're proposing. And then it's our engineer's purview to review that. And I kind of feel that it's a little bit in the wrong sequence here. I think the applicant is asking our engineer to do the work that his engineer should be doing. And I don't think this application is very well presented right now. And I think it needs to be clarified from the applicant exactly what he's proposing. because now he's talking about 10,000 feet, but we also have 2,000 feet in the existing building and a potential that the second floor of that existing building is also included. I think we're going to run into trouble because when we try to enforce any approvals that we have here, because there isn't a definitive document that shows exactly what the applicant is proposing for this application.
Yes, Sid?
Hey Doug,
Yes,
have you done this before? Because maybe I'm oversimplifying this, but I thought we could simply go to our engineer and say 14,000 square feet of retail space for antiques, let's call it. You need this many parking spots. I thought it'd be that kind of a simple solution, but maybe it isn't. Do you have any
it isn't.
suggestions?
It's not just that he's going to tell you that you need 30 spaces or 20 spaces, but someone has to show us how on that site they're going to accommodate those spaces. I just think I think the process is going in reverse. I think the applicant should be presenting this information to us for us to review. His engineer should determine what is an appropriate parking area for the building that he's proposing. I don't think all our engineer should be doing is reviewing what's presented by the applicant. Clearly the applicant's going to pay for it regardless of which way it's done because he's responsible to pay the fees for our engineer. But I think you're moving our engineer from more being a review engineer to being a design engineer. And I don't think that's his role.
What do folks feel about that, Commissioner Joe?
Well, the only comment I might have, Doug, is that I think the applicant has already indicated that there was no intention of expanding the existing parking area, which is designed for 15 cars or 15 spots. I'm trying to look at a plan to see where parking area is designated on the plan. Not having too much luck with that, but
We'll try to show it up on the screen to see if we
Okay.
can show something, but
we'd at least have that type of information, Doug, to send to design professionals, at least the existing site plan with the parking area for 15 cars as it stands now. And then say, is this adequate for retail operations in two buildings that total some 14,000 square feet?
so then the point would be that there's already a proposal that the proposal right now is not to expand the parking lot. That's what the applicant is proposing.
That's what the applicant is.
And then have design professionals, one second, and then have design professionals review that and say,
That makes sense.
adequate or not adequate, let us know, but based upon that, that's already been submitted to us. Saying there's already existing parking, we're proposing to keep it as is,
Right.
so, which is already in the application.
Although, like I said, I'm trying to see on one of these drawings where the parking area.
Well, we
was.
do have stuff up on the
There
screen.
is. Okay, well,
We're not asking design professionals to design a parking lot.
no,
We're asking them to review if this is adequate parking. This
What's
plan is
currently
adequate.
there and that the proposal is not, right now, the proposal is keep the parking as is.
Mr. Chairman,
So,
Yeah.
Dwight,
if I have a power equipment place and I have 30 lawnmowers, it doesn't mean it's going to increase the amount of people that are going to come look at the mowers. So I don't think I'm going to need additional parking. Now, if he increases his retail space and he has 30 more tables in his retail space, that's going to increase parking. I'm just, just an observation. I don't see how increasing the inventory is going to require more space.
so right now, the motion we have before us is to have design professionals review the parking. And one of the points raised is whether or not we need more of a proposal presented to us about parking. But another point that's been raised is we already have that proposal, which is applicants are saying we already have 15 parking spaces. That's what we want. We're going to open up some of those because employee parking is going to move. So some spots that are being used for employee parking are no longer going to be used. Hence, the full 15 parking spots could be used by customers. And that's the existing parking space.
and where the employees and owners' cars would be parking, because now obviously we're talking, if they're parking in this area designated as 15 spots on the drawings, and they're gonna move it somewhere else, and that would be nice to know where those cars are gonna be parked, so that design professionals, that's a good idea, of the total site utilization.
Mark, and then we'll have to see what we want to do with this motion.
I kind of agree with Clay that, you know, if we're talking a restaurant that is opening up another 10,000 square foot seating area, one would assume there's gonna be more vehicles pulling in there. But if we just give you more viewing area for the same number of customers that are coming now, but give them a few more things to look at, doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna have a big mass of people come in, just because there are more items to look at while you're there.
So right now, the matter before us is then asking design professionals to review the parking. And the current proposal in this application is keep the parking as is. That's the proposal in this application, not to expand it or to shrink it back. And then we would have design professionals tell us what they think. And then, as you said, we'd have to take it with a grain of salt, just because we don't want to have them come back and say, you need 60 spots, and we just rubber stamp that and create a 60 spot parking place. Tim?
Once again, I think there needs to be a plan. If you're gonna call design professionals, I think there has to be some sort of a plan that says this is the existing parking. Now we're going to put employee parking over here. There needs to be a square footage to it. There needs to be a design to it. And then this is gonna increase space over here so that we have something to go. It's really and truly this, you know, this can't be a match. Right, you know, like I said, we need to have something to set design profession. It looks professional. That, you know, yeah, the employees are gonna park over here. Okay, we'll show that, you know. How's that gonna work? You know, how's it gonna park this way, that way? You know, how does that look? And somebody needs to put together some sort of a plan that can go to design professionals. And yes, I don't think that we need to get crazy about parking lots up there. It needs to be adequate. I mean, let's face it, you're not doing this to the barn so that you can completely keep the same level of business you expect to pay for the barn. Therefore, there has to be more revenue locally generated. So we're not talking about the same level of customers coming in here, just more room for them to walk around. We're talking about more customers coming in to buy the items so that we can afford doing this at barn. So to say that the same number of people are going to be there is incorrect. Hopefully not the same number of people, it's going to be more for the barn. So we need to kind of put together something that says this is what we got, and then they can review it, and if design professional says this is totally inadequate, then we got to
So what do we have this motion on the table right now.
I would
So-
withdraw the motion if we want to request a better plan from Mr. Bolsley.
And what plan would we be requesting? We have,
Something of some, how he's going to rearrange his parking.
so my understanding is with the parking here, I'm trying to show it on. This is the house here. You're talking then that the employee parking somewhere in the back here, Mr. Bosler?
The driveway in the back, the existing driveway where the gate is to be built. 69, and that gate stays shut. It can swing open just in case a fire truck has to get in. It swings open. Otherwise, that gate stays shut. There's do not enter sign there. And that's where we would just park, right there. You know, away from the employees, just line right up, right down the driveway. Real simple.
So is
The
it,
driveway is not marked. There's no, it's gravel. The only thing, we have the,
So this still shouldn't need to be designed. Yeah.
just wanted to,
what is design?
It shows you how it's gonna happen. You know, what's designed, you know, you and your wife and two other employees. Oh, we've increased and we're getting twice the customers. We need twice the employees. How's that gonna work? Are they gonna go park? And, you know, so we need to have some sort of you're gonna get bigger, we need to see that. We need to see what it's gonna look like. And how can we go to design professionals with nothing? I mean, we've got to have some sort of a plan. You gotta show something, I mean. And to get it approved, we gotta show everything.
I'm
so
just
that-
confused, saying to show something, we have. Confusion is like, some of you made a good couple of points, that you show, tell the engineer, this is the square feet. How many spaces does he need? I don't know any other way around. What's he gonna do? I got the pump house there, that has to stay, that's my well. So there's not really much room for make that expansion. Hopefully you can say, hey, you know, this guy has this much square footage, how many parking spots? Zero five. I engineered beautiful prints of the barn inside and out. We have the existing parking lot, the brand new parking lot, I just put it 2 years ago. I don't, just, other than talk to an engineer, I just don't know how else you want to get it.
I'm gonna deal you then, David.
So the people online can't see where we're pointing. So if you could tell me where you were saying that you and your wife and your employee or employees park, and I will move the little, see the little hand? Is that in the right place? Is that where you were talking about?
Yes, right there,
Okay.
the back driveway, leading
And so
right to
you would-
169.
You would still drive out of the same driveway that everybody will be using?
Correct.
Okay. And so if I understand it correctly, I think what the commission is suggesting is that you go back to the company that made your plan, and they would come up with an idea to accommodate parking, that if they think more parking is needed for the increased size of the retail space, and then you would submit the plans to the town, and we have the town's consulting engineer review it. So what they're saying is, they don't think that the town's consulting engineer will just review a number, like a square footage. They want to see it drawn on the plan. Is that correct?
And that's what you were getting at, Doug, is having something more on the plan. So design professionals would review as opposed to design professionals doing the upfront work of creating the plan.
Correct. And, as I'm sitting here thinking about this, you're talking about they're proposing to put the employee parking in the driveway there that has been blocked off from access from 169. But I still believe that driveway is there for fire apparatus access. Now, if the employees are parking there, the fire apparatus can't get in. But that's why I think the applicant's engineer has to prepare the plans so that they're looking at all of those issues that come up when they propose a design.
Right now, David, yep.
You're asking us, you're planning to do this once for 10,000 square feet. So we need to plan for 5 years, a booming business with 10,000 square feet. So we need not to be backed up. We need to be able to approve, you want to do it for 10,000 square feet, we need to have all the drawings in front of us so that in 5 years, hopefully everything is booming and you have adequate parking. We won't be dealing with, other problems with people parking on the road or not being able to get in and that kind of stuff. So, if we're going to do this in one fell swoop, we need to plan for what's going to happen when you have 10,000 or 14,000 total square feet of area. And hopefully, like Tim said, you're going to have more customers. You're going to need more parking.
Question. Delia, question, right?
1 second. We still have this motion on the table, so we should try to sort that out, what we're going to do with this motion on the table. So right now, the motion on the table is have design professionals review regarding parking. We're having discussions here about whether or not we can do that now, and we need something more proposed about parking, which would include employee parking, and as Doug mentioned about fire, public safety access, they have to get through that back way, and employees are parking there. All of that has to be put into a plan. once one receives it, then have design professionals review it. That is putting the horse before the cart then, in a sense, trying to sort it out that way. So we do have this motion on the table right now. How do we want to handle it? One way of handling it is, we withdraw the motion and just wait to get something in. Then we discuss it further and then decide about getting design professionals, or we make this motion such that we'll have design professionals review once we receive a plan that design professionals can review.
I would amend it to that once we get
Yes.
something planned in, that we can review and then we can have design
And
professionals.
that could also try to facilitate the movement of the process,
Yeah, so we would have to have another meeting. and all that. So
Correct,
just
because if
when
we have to
get it,
wait-
We can send it out.
because then we'd have to wait till August. Then we decide to get the design professionals review, which then happens, and then we get it back in September. If we know we're gonna need this, and the applicant has heard that this is something that it looks like we're gonna need, get that in. And once it's received, Delia, you would have design professionals review as opposed to design professionals trying to create something.
Right.
Does that make sense to you, Doug, as far as what you were getting at?
Yes, I think that's exactly what I thought should happen, Jeff.
Okay, so I'll amend that motion to that when we get a plan in from Way, that we can have design professionals review it.
Okay. Mark, you seconded. Are you okay with it? So without complicating things with the parliamentary process, it's just easier to say, this is the motion we have.
Yes.
And that's what we basically been discussing. So I don't know if anyone has any more discussion on this,
On that motion.
on the motion. Relative to that, I just want to make certain that you are understanding what we're saying as far as getting a further plan in to be able to have that reviewed. Okay. So you're not proposing right now to enlarge that 15 spaces. You just want to move the employees to a different area. We would just need to see something there to show how would you park them. And then if that gate has to be open, heaven forbid there's a fires, an ambulance has to get in there, how that would flow in. If they then can't move their cars. If they say there's a fire and everyone has to leave, they're not gonna be wasting time trying to drive out if, let's say the building's on fire. How then would equipment get in there from a fire safety point of view? Relative to the parking, just like that was already last time addressed relative to that parking lot. As far as getting fire equipment in there, in and out, there was adequacy getting in and out of that area there. We would just need to see how parking would be if you're shifting the employees. But you're not expanding the parking lot for customers, if that makes sense. Okay. Any further discussion? Otherwise, I'll just want to make certain I'm not missing online. I'll go through the roll then, if we're okay with the motion. Joe Adaletta.
Aye.
Mark Blackmer.
Aye.
Sid Blodgett.
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, aye. Dean Gould.
Aye.
He's not here. David Morse.
Aye.
Joe Palula.
Aye.
Dwight Reinowitz.
Aye.
Timothy Young.
Aye.
Okay, so that so passes. So as opposed to having to wait for our August meeting, you can get that into us and then Delia would communicate with design professionals. And then we'll certainly have to get things, we'll see it and we'll see what design professional says, but then we would then move it along.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm going to open up to the public. So public doesn't have to speak. If you choose not to speak tonight, doesn't mean you can't speak at the next meeting for your first time. So you don't have to feel put on the spot. I know there's a lot that we go through as a commissioners and with our staff, certainly. But is there any member of the public who does wish to speak? Please let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to scroll through online here. Virtual. Is there anybody on the meeting virtual who wishes to speak? You can either put your virtual hand up or otherwise let me know. I'm just scrolling through. And I'm so far not seeing anybody. Okay.
Gordon, could I speak for a minute?
Yes, if you can state your name for the record, you can, yep, you can speak up to 5 minutes. Thank you for coming tonight.
Good evening. My name is Gail Bosley, and I may be a little biased because Jason is my son and Jamie is my daughter-in-law. And I was at the ribbon cutting for the original Rusty Relic, and I've seen it grow exponentially, which has been not only good for them, but also good for the town of Woodstock. I was actually in Massachusetts last week at a funeral, and someone at the funeral asked me, "Are you related to the person that owns the Rusty Relic?" So, I mean, people are coming to this area from not only Woodstock, but from neighboring states. And I think that behooves, I understand it's a historical district and I applaud that. I live in Thompson. We have the Thompson Hill, same, so I understand that nostalgic ambiance. As far as there was a letter presented about the music played, I can tell you, it's acoustic guitar. I have been at the store several times where there's, like a folk singer playing on the porch. People have lawn chairs, they bring a picnic. To me, what better ambiance is that than saying historical society? It reminds me of Norman Rockwell. So I think that, progress is good. I think, historical is fine too, but we have to look for the future. And I do think that with all of the small decorations that are outside, that may be bothersome to some of the neighbors. I understand that. But by opening up the barn, a lot of those smaller mailboxes, that type of thing, would be enclosed and not be so visible. And I think once the landscaping gets done, everyone knows COVID put a damper on everybody. And hiring landscapers, they were not working for a time. Now they're overbooked. I think that'll eventually get done too. So I encourage the commission to go forward with these plans, and I think it'll benefit not only their business, but the town in general. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for coming tonight. Is there any other member? Yes, sir, if you can state your name for the record.
William Lewinsky, and I'm just for continuity, I'm representing the Evangelical Covenant Church in Woodstock. My comments aren't necessarily from the church, but in the public interest of traffic and safety. There are tractor trailers turning into that site now. It's not a truck-friendly site at all. Something should be done or part of the consideration on improving the access for a tractor trailer truck. So we don't have accidents there, particularly backing up onto Route 169. The video that I put up there was a tractor trailer taking 6 minutes and 20 seconds to back in. It had already been starting before that video was started and it continued after it started. And so that could have been 10 minutes or more. And if that's during the school day when the academy kids are coming and going and people are turning around on both sides of the trucks, just trying to get where they're going. So something could be done, with the entryway to facilitate that, just so that we're not having a huge safety issue with the tractor trailers coming in. So that's primarily the nature of my bringing this up to you, that you would also look at that along the same lines with the previous item with the parking areas. And that, I don't believe, is the latest parking design. Parking spots are all the way up to the church property line. And I don't believe it was finally approved.
This is not the Mylar. I didn't have access to that right now. But it was labeled the final plans before the last approval. I just don't have the Mylars.
Okay.
So I would go by the Mylars if I had them. I
Yeah.
just don't have it
Well, we
today.
can get copies of those,
Yeah.
certainly.
So you have a narrow driveway, you have a narrow gate. Mailbox is kind of doesn't help in there. Just something to get the trucks off the road if you're gonna go ahead with this and be part of the design process. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public who wishes to speak? I'll just make certain I'm scrolling through online here, or virtual. One thing I do want to, yes, sir, please state your name for the record. Thank you for being here tonight.
Hi, thank you. My name is Dave Coombs, and I'm actually going to give you a perspective from a different person, and I'm actually the customer. I've known Jason and Jamie for about 40 years. I spent 23 years in the United States Air Force, and I retired to this area about 5 years ago. And I actually started shopping at their store when it was at their original location, and then they moved here to Woodstock down the street before they actually bought the house to come here. They are phenomenal people. And I can say that because firsthand, they've done things that most businesses wouldn't do to take care of me as a military veteran. They've actually allowed me to purchase items and then pay them on a payment plan to be able to get furniture into my house. He's delivered things directly to my house to make sure that I had things to take care of my family. So from a perspective of a customer, they do a lot for the community. And I think that's something you guys really need to take into consideration. I actually live in Massachusetts. I drove here tonight because Jason asked me if I could just come be here to support him, just as a friend and as somebody that they've taken a lot of care of over this time. So, the only thing I ask is when you think about when you're voting to try and take care of them and help them with their project, think about everything that they do for the community. They talked about some of the things that they've done as far as donating turkeys to needy families. I was there when they actually had the school backpacks out there for any families to come and take. I mean, these are huge things that they do things for the community. And as a veteran, I know I appreciate that what they've done for me as a customer. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And I hope everybody can, get on board with that. Thanks.
Thank you. One thing I just want to mention is it may, to some people, seem that we're nitpicking, but we have to cross the Ts and dot the Is. One thing is, once we do our review, it's say we approve, deny, approve with modifications. We just need to make certain we followed a process, that we followed what our statutory authority is. You never know if people appeal our decisions. They can if they wish. We just need to make certain, for the town's sake and for the commission's work, but also for the applicant, we're doing everything clear and on the record, and we're following a process. So sometimes it may seem that we may nitpicking or looking at not looking at the big picture, but looking at all the details. We have to look at it all in order to make certain it's done right. Because if it isn't done right for us for our process, not only does that hurt the town, the community, and the town government, but it hurts the applicant if things aren't done right. And certainly we like to see businesses be successful. So I'm glad you guys are and want to see businesses grow. We just want to make certain we can help guide that appropriately and deal with all the different interests we have to deal with. And that's why some of these issues we have to just get clarified so we can make certain we're doing what we need to do, especially if it says in the regulations there's certain things we need to be attending to. We have to attend to them. Otherwise, technically, then we can't make a decision. So that's why we're going through this process. And a special permit modification requires these public hearings. That's state statute. So that's why we have to do what we do in this regard. So I appreciate you guys working with us, on this to see what we can do to be of help to you, but also to the town as a whole, as far as what we have to do in that regard. Is there anyone else from members of the public? Otherwise, this item would have to be tabled. I'm just looking online again, or virtual, I should say. Okay. So if there's anything else from commissioners, otherwise, did you have something else?
Only a quick comment based on
Sure.
What William was just saying about the trucks. When we get and this is mostly for Delia, assuming we get a revised plan from CHA or whoever the applicant uses for the site plan for the parking. And it sounds like if you get it between now and our next meeting, you would just send it off to design professionals for them to review. I think that's how the motion went.
Yes.
Would you be able to ask them to consider tractor trailer truck entry and exiting the lot
Yes.
for consideration.
I don't think we need to make an additional motion
No.
for that. I think that's fine.
It's just on the cover letter to
Yeah.
design professionals.
And we'll have that in our, in our minutes, if you don't mind, Amy, at that point about the tractor trail. So that way it's just clear. I mean, we can certainly ask them that.
Yeah.
We're looking at parking. What?
Picture of the tractor trailer.
I'll find a good one.
So, but that way we can just get that squared away. So right now, if there's not anything else, we would have to table this to the August 18th meeting. That's our third Thursday meeting. That should give enough time for the Beausoleils to see exactly what they want to put on relative to that employee parking and be thinking about fire and public safety ingress and egress. If that gate has to be open, heaven forbid, there's a reason. And then design professionals can review it. Hopefully we can get that for our meeting for August. Our meeting packets, we try to get them out 8 days before, although I don't know how that's going to work now without a zoning enforcement officer. So it may, we're going to have to figure out when those meeting packets go out. But ideally, we want the meeting packets out the middle to the end of the week before we meet, because commissioners need to see things. And so, I don't want to rush you, but the sooner you're able to get it to Delia and coordinate with her, certainly, the sooner then design professionals can review and get back to us. They're usually very good reviewing things in a timely manner. And then we have years of working with them, and you certainly do, Delia. So that can flow. It's just more getting stuff to her. So,
Does Delia have office hours here in the town hall? I'm just, she's down at Mecon.
well, that's what I was, yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I think what's happening right now is we have the zoning enforcement office, the land use department. We don't really have a CEO, but she's left to be in the planning department at Vernon. I was at town hall in Vernon last night, and that came up. So, so normally things will have to flow through here, but I'm not certain, and I'm going to get into that for the CEO report. Not certain how that's working.
Oh,
And Delia is working on this. So I would say, talk with Delia. She's at NECOG. And then whatever we need to get into the file here, you know how to do that anyway. So, but right now you wouldn't be able to work easily with the land use department because we just don't have somebody. But Delia has reviewed this anyway.
I can meet with the
So,
clients at
sure.
the town hall. I just don't spend time there to meet with the
Right.
general public.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that most of the ladies knew that you weren't right here.
But Delia would be someone to connect with.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and you're going to still be coming to our meetings, so, that would be good for that regard. So unless there's anything else, we would have to table this to our August 18th. And because this is tabling the public hearing, we usually say public hearings at 7:45, just to show we don't start them at 7:30.
So moved.
Okay,
Second,
so motion by Joe Adaletta, seconded by Sid Blodgett to table this agenda item to August 18th at 7:45. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll go through the roll. Joe Adaletta,
Aye.
Mark Lackmer,
Aye.
Sid Blodgett,
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, aye, Dean Gould,
Aye.
David Morse,
Aye.
Joe Palula,
Aye.
Dwight Reinowitz,
Aye.
and last but not least, Timothy Young. That so goes. So I think we've covered a lot of good ground and gotten a lot of very helpful information. So I appreciate you very much working with us on this, and then we can see where we stand moving the ball more forward at our August meeting. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So the public hearing is so tabled, so we will reopen it at that August meeting.
Did you get that order on that?
He's not seated.
Oh, okay.
So, there's no preliminary discussion that I was told that we have.
You're all set.
So old business, part two, the Beausoleil item is, we don't need to do that. I just want to real quick, before we get into home occupations, if we have time, we're pushing 10. For cannabis regulations is something that we actually do need to have hopefully a quick discussion about. I did send an email out. I was looking at where we stand on the calendar. I know we don't copy and paste what other towns are doing. I figured since Wellington is actively looking into things, they have other exciting or controversial zoning issues going on in their town. To see where we are, I just wanted to show you kind of what another town is drafting. So that was sent out and should be in the meeting packet. I just wanted to show you what another town is working on. But the moratorium ends October 31st. The plan was to try to get cannabis regulations worked through and get public input. A lot of things had to be sidetracked because of the state's requirement to update the affordable housing plan. And we didn't have a lot of time to do it, and we had to meet that deadline. So we needed to do that, which meant unfortunately, a lot of other things had to be put onto the back burner. We're moving a lot of stuff back now onto the front burners. We're not going to have enough time to properly think through meaningful but also common sense regulations for cannabis commercial operations. Not that we're going to try to create, 100 pages, but we do want to make certain we think through it thoughtfully and not in a burdensome way, and be able to get something out to a public hearing and meet that moratorium deadline. So one of the things I'm proposing, and I had sent this out to you guys. Sorry, I sent it out the last minute, but I was making my own notes and I tend to type them into the computer. So I figured, why not just put it in a memo and you guys can see it. Is to vote tonight to schedule a public hearing for our August meeting for the purpose of changing the wording of the regulations that says that October 31st of this year is the end of the moratorium, moving that out 6 months to April 30th of 2023, give us time to continue to work on these regulations. We did take it back up at our last meeting. We'll continue to move forward on it. If we finish this work and get regulations enacted well before a new deadline, a new moratorium expires, then the moratorium can go away once we enact regulations. But this would give us additional time, but also give us time to continue to get input from the public. I know we try the best we can. We're one of the commissions known in town to be proactive, trying to get input from people. Whether people avail themselves of that, that's a different story. But this would give us time to sort through some things. We've already had some good discussions at our last meeting. I think this will be good to continue. We just need to make certain that we can give ourselves in the town enough of a leeway without making this, certainly we're not going to make this a permanent moratorium. That's would have to go through a town meeting to craft what we feel is reasonable for these types of operations, but also how do we fit that into the town like we fit many things into the town. So that would be what I'm recommending that we do. It would require a text amendment just to change the date of the expiration of the moratorium. That's why we would have to take it to public hearing.
I'll move to authorize the change in the text amendment. Schedule a public hearing.
Seconded that. Tim?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And Joe, if you don't mind, that would be for, that would be a text amendment public hearing for August 18th.
Correct.
And we would still list that at 7:45.
Yep.
So is that okay with you?
That's acceptable.
And okay with you, Tim?
Do we have enough time to do the notice?
Well, the notice has to be for how many days?
30?
We'll double check that to see. I thought it was, but we can take a look and see where we are with that. And this would be the wording that I had proposed just to change that one date.
Yep. That's it.
So on that, Delia is just verifying the time frame. That's our next monthly meeting, but then there's this time frame we have to follow. So for public hearing, it for a text amendment is how many days, Delia?
At least 30 days to the card.
So how many days does that take us to? We're 21. For the 21st right now, that's 10. That would be 28. days. So we wouldn't meet the 30,
Right.
okay? Not sure we want to push this off to September. Although we could, if we wanted to schedule the public hearing. Well, the first Thursday of September is right before the Labor Day weekend is starting.
So why don't we do it September 15th?
You just have to have a quorum because isn't your deadline and suppose you have a wee bit more time before the deadline, October 31st.
Well, the deadline's October 31st. I mean, realistically, how long of a discussion would we have to make this change? If we have the public hearing, we realistically would close it the same night, I would think. We would set an effective date, which could certainly not be past October 31st, and we would be covered. Otherwise, the option is, I don't know if people feel that we want to have a meeting on September 1st. But that's right before Labor Day. Sometimes we don't have folks. And that's also right before the Woodstock Fair. I mean, I'm happy to be here. I'm going to be busy working at the fair, but we also lose other folks sometimes right before that. So unless we do a special meeting, but that would be another night happy to meet. So if we thought the 15th, are we having, that's not the holiday, right? I thought we changed one of the dates. What do people think if we did it on the 15th of September? Doesn't mean we're going to hold working on the regulations. We do have a, let's see here, that is the September.
It's not a holiday.
Well, it is the day before Yom Kippur. So actually, we moved our meeting to September 23rd for that month.
23rd to Friday.
No, 22nd. Correct. We had moved it. So we had already scheduled not to do it on the 15th. Because that evening starts a holiday.
Oh.
So we moved it to, that business meeting is happening on September 22nd. And September 1st is a planning meeting if we so choose it. So did we want to take this up on September 22nd, purely just to deal with the moratorium date?
Just the date.
That's all that it would be. Continuing to work on the regulation for cannabis, we would continue to do that. We wouldn't wait until this
And then there's what, a 15-day notice that it.
appeal.
Appeal notice. So that would still fall before October 31st. assuming we-
Oh, it would. Yes, it would. So would September 15th, I mean, 22nd.
22nd.
22nd. And we'll need to, as we get closer to that, we'll note that we're not reminding everyone we're not meeting on the 15th. So is that okay with then for the motion?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to continue to have cannabis regulations on our active list, continuing to move forward. So this is just for the extending the moratorium. So is there?
At 7:45.
Yes. Any discussion on that? Okay, I'll go through the roll. Joe Adaletta,
Aye.
Mark Blackmer,
Aye.
Sid Blodgett,
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, Dean Gould. David Morse.
Aye.
Joe Palula.
Aye.
Dwight Reinowitz.
Aye.
Tim Young.
Aye.
You'll take care of whatever needs to be done for that? Okay.
Jeff, who seconded that?
That was seconded by Tim Young. It's 10 o'clock. I don't know if we want to take anything up at this hour
I don't.
to follow up on home occupation.
Where did that come from?
Our next meeting is August 4th. So in 2 weeks. That's a planning meeting. On the planning meeting, I was going to put home occupation. And if we also want to have time to deal with cannabis regulations. Okay. There are a couple things about the CEO office and some enforcement I do need to make certain we are aware of. As we know, Ashley's last day technically was the 19th. I'm not quite certain. She had mentioned that she might be coming in on some Fridays. I don't really know. She's not certain. It's going to depend upon what really her new job allows her. She also wasn't certain if she would be able to attend to zoning enforcement. I had spoken with the first selectman. I know there's a process in place right now to see about getting applicants. I haven't heard anything back about the status of that yet, as far as who exactly they've gotten in or where that stands, or would they contract potentially with someone like happened prior, where they were contracting with Mike D'Amato? And actually, for a time, they were contracting with Tina. So I don't know. I have reminded that the zoning enforcement is important. We're not the ones that are paid to do that. I've also made mention that we do need to make certain that the work of that office for the permits that happen there need to happen. And that the clerical stuff that has to happen to get meetings together will happen. I'm not going to be doing that. I made that point that I just cannot be coming in and do that type of stuff. So I'm a little busy with some things that I'm doing. And again, we're not paid to do that. So we're just going to have to see how that pans out. As far as I'm concerned, we're continuing to do the work that we're doing. Delia, you're still working with us in the role of planner,
Right.
not in the role of zoning, correct? So I just wanted to make certain people are aware of that. So I asked Ashley to let me know when she's coming in and how things are working, if she is coming in, so we're just aware of how things go. So, well, I know the first selectman is actively looking into things and seeing what can be done. So I appreciate his help in that regard. And we'll go accordingly. One other thing I wanted to mention about the office, and I think I had put this into, I think a copy had gone out, was it in the meeting packet? An email from the director of finance. So, okay, yeah, so we may not have put it in. So we have been told that sometimes before, Delia and myself, and I've had discussions with Ashley about this when she was CEO, that supposedly from the director of finance, I never got this confirmed prior from the first selectman or saw a policy written that I as chair or Delia doing your work as planner can't contact the town attorney when it's appropriate to do. Like if the commission votes that we need to talk with the town attorney to get A, B, and C answered, usually what has happened, and we've done this for years, is after the meeting, I've talked with Ashley, you've been involved, and we agree, yes, we're going to ask the town attorney, and one of us does. Sometimes it's Ashley, sometimes it's you. It's say a special permit that you're reviewing that Ashley isn't, or maybe it's me as chair. It's say a process question we have to get answered. There's never been any issue in all the years we've been doing that. Everybody is on the same page. But there's been continued pushback from the director of finance. And there was an email that went out to Delia and I basically saying under no circumstances are we to do it. We'd have to get permission from the CEO, and in the absence of the CEO, from the first selectman. Personally, I think that's interfering with the work of an independently elected commission. We are elected by the people to do work, and we have statutory authority to do that work, and we should be doing that work. It had been mentioned or implied that how we handle working with the town attorney may be costing too much, or it may be inefficient, and we're duplicating where multiple of us are asking the town attorney the exact same thing. I did have some communication today with the first selectman to let him know that I don't think that all the facts are being presented properly by the director of finance. I'm not saying anything personally about her, but I don't think the full story is being presented, how things have been worked. And this has been worked out with prior first selectmen during my time as chair, like Alan Walker and Mike Albertson when he was here. We aren't duplicating and making things inefficient. We're actually streamlined it where we're all on the same page. We're all on the same email. Ashley, Delia, myself, things that we need to share with the commission, we do. Some of it is privileged information that we let you guys know has to be privileged. But when the commission asks questions, we give the answer back. If Delia feels reviewing a special permit, there's a legal issue that needs to be clarified, you've asked me. And if I feel it's appropriate to do, I've said yes. Ashley's been involved with that. And the same if Ashley has notified me at times that she was going to contact the town attorney about it enforcement. I don't stand in the way of that, but everyone communicates. Our budget for years ago, we had our own line item for legal expenses. The CEO did. Barbara Rich, when she was treasurer, had said, why do you have two different ones when we have to try to figure out which line item it goes in if there's overlap? Decision was it was merged. At some point, that line item was cut down, even though we weren't advocating that. So there was some concern that was last fiscal year we went over. I don't think by a big amount. No one has at all informed me or the commission that any one of those legal items generated by commission work was inappropriate, was wrong to do. One of the things that I know we're well aware of that is that we fail to get legal input and we do something wrong, that's a massive expense to the town and a potential appeal lawsuit. So we don't go crazy. If you notice, we don't invite Rich to the meetings routinely. And we're very judicious in talking with them. So I told the first selectman that I appreciated his he and I having some communication today, and that I would like to have a follow-up discussion with him. Because I think there's information he may not have been told and he may not be aware of. And that I think before being sent an email from someone who's not the first selectman, it would behoove people to talk with us, to understand our process and to understand why we do what we do. My concern is that if we're told that we can't at all communicate, and now we have to go through the first selectman and wait for a CEO to give us permission, things can be slowed down. And that could interfere with the work we do, but also that can hurt the community with the work we're supposed to do for them. So I wanted to raise it. I'm hopeful things can be worked out with the first selectman when he understands what the real facts are. And if you look at it, any amount we went over isn't a big amount. And I looked through what has been presented out to us in the past fiscal year for the legal line items. I didn't see a single one that was inappropriate, that I raised any question. If I do, I don't sign off on the bills in certain regards. So, I just wanted to mention it to you because it's, there was that broad side to the commission. And we just need to be aware that we're trying to do the work that we do. We're mindful that it's taxpayer money, but also what isn't taken into account, and Ashley did take this into account in a memo she sent to us, that they don't seem to consider or take into account that we actually do generate money for the town in fees that are charged, and those types of fees are appropriate. We've reviewed those many times before. In fact, it was talked in a revenue report for last fiscal year that the department brought in close to $3,900 more than was expected. So it's not as if we're spending money and it's a massive drain on the town. There's additional balancing of that comes in, with fees that are done and that type of stuff. So I wanted to mention it just because I have in the past offered to have people come to our meetings and talk with us. I'll certainly do it again. And again, I appreciate our first selectman taking some time to communicate with me today when I reached out to him. And I look forward to chatting further with him on the topic. But I just want to let you know about it so you're aware of what's happening, especially since we don't have a CEO right now. Joe?
Yeah, I would just like to make a statement of support in favor of our chair and CEO when we get the CEO, that they have the authority to contact the town attorney for matters that the commission brings up or matters that they have concerns about because of the liability that the town faces for decisions and that the commission faces. And if Delia, who's not or whoever DCOG assigns to the town, who's not a town employee, as long as that employee checks with the chair for contacting the town attorney, I would certainly support that kind of activity. I just want to at least put my personal
Thank you, Joe.
I'm in agreement with that as well, Mr. Chairman. I think it's important to have that kind of communication with our attorneys on matters that we come across. And to have limitations put on that, I don't think it's correct.
Thank you. So I'll let you know how that goes. So we're always available in our meetings to hear from others. And always like to work with others. So I just want to mention again, it's something personal about any one person. It's just, we just need to be aware of the work we have to do. So I'm always proud of the fact that we do that work very well and work well together to get it done. I don't know if there was a list of permits that Ashley issued before she left. I don't think there was anything that she had sent to us on that. I had asked, so maybe there wasn't anything. On enforcement, I want to mention a few items because I had asked her about this, but you actually know more about this one. The follow-up on Supreme Sheds. I know we had reminded them that.
He called me last week.
Mhm.
I didn't get the message until this week, but I went over with him about how to apply for a special permit. I don't think he understood what a special permit was. So I sent him the information and links to the website and the regulations and explained that after he has a chance to go over it, he can call and I'll answer any questions and that he should find, I strongly encourage that he hire someone to help him with the application. And so I have to wait for him to go ahead and do that.
And I think he's been reminded that he has to follow the terms of the current permit. As opposed to that if he's going beyond it, he should not be doing that. I don't know what the status of that is. If that's being abided by, or if it's not being abided by, but right now I don't know exactly what's happening with who's doing the zoning enforcement. So, but we'll see how that goes. And there was one other follow-up on zoning enforcement that there was some issues being attended to. I know Ashley was involved with this, with someone who had wanted to do weddings at their place. And there was a whole bunch of discussions with Ashley. I don't know if you were involved with this, Delia.
I was.
And you know, I don't know if this had been resolved. This was something that had been brought to our attention, I think back in April. And it was still listed as kind of a pending item. And I'd asked Ashley about it.
She was gonna send them a letter, but I never heard any final outcome.
It's about someone, where is this, on Center Road?
On the corner, I think of 197 and Center Road.
Wanting to do weddings there,
They have a beautiful website. It's already up and looks like it's ready to go.
but they have no permit for it
Right.
as a business.
Yeah, they just had a wedding there last weekend or the weekend before.
But they have no permit.
Yeah.
So if they're running a business, and this is what we had been told before, and there was going to be some follow through on it. And Ashley told me she hadn't heard anything additional about it, but about what actually are they doing that they were told they need to get a permit. So if they are doing something and they don't have a permit, that's an issue. But again, that we'd have to see where that stands from a zoning enforcement point of view. I don't know who's doing that.
When was the wedding there?
Either last weekend or the weekend prior.
You know, they're going to use their place for a wedding and not make it any business and get paid as a business. I guess that could be one thing that they could just do.
They had
But-
quite the setup.
Right, but that needs, but that, otherwise, if they're going to do it as part of a business operation, they're required to go through permits. And this was all told to them prior. Again,
Extensively on several occasions.
so that's an additional pending item on the list for enforcement. So I just wanted to raise it because Ashley's not here and there wasn't anything further on it. So,
Yeah, so it's Center Road intersection right across from.
well, again, I don't know who's doing zoning enforcement. So I don't know if Ashley is going to try to do it. I don't know. We'll have to. So at least we're aware of it and we can see where we are with that. There's nothing for budget review beyond what we've just done in bills. And the only correspondence we have is that newsletter that comes out, the quarterly newsletter. So, and other than that, I don't have to go through that. There's no other correspondence that we've received other than what was for these applications. That would take us then to the last agenda item. So motion by Young, seconded by Blackmer to adjourn the meeting. I gotta go through the roll. So Joe Adaletta.
Aye.
Mark Blackmer.
Aye.
Sid Blodgett.
Aye.
Jeff Gordon. I don't know if I have to think about that one, but I'll say no. I'll say aye, please. Put it that way. Aye. Dean Gould. David Morse.
Aye.
Joe Palula.
Aye.
Dwight Rhino. Timothy Young.
Aye.
I got 10:19 or whatever time you have. Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
A bit later than usual, but thank you. Thank you, Doug. Hopefully this owl device worked again for you, Doug.
Your 360 thing wasn't working, but the meeting went well.
Okay, yeah, so it wasn't, you know what? I think it was just pointing in one direction. Okay, well, Delia and I didn't really know how to set it up, so Delia was able to figure it out. We'll try to see to get it to work better.
Yes. Okay, the next time I'll make sure you guys are not with the video turned off.
They may still be open.
How you doing?
Good, how are you? I don't know who is. I told her we were likely going late. I don't know. Let me see. Is there anyone still here?
Last year too, it's pretty exciting. It catches on and grows. I like it, but now it's fine.
I'll have to find out about that.
You're okay.
I won't be around until October 23.
I know, yes. That was like my favorite.
What you said with design professionals on mine, whatever they come up with, we can consider, but yeah, revising our regs.
Based upon what they say.
I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, and if we need to get anything more from them in general,
Yeah.
we'll just ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. So we'll have to
Yeah,
find
you
out.
stole my phone.
I can email you a whole spreadsheet of the road in town and what the speed limits are going from year to year.
That would be helpful. Because John Navarro thought it was 30.
Yeah, I'm
Ideally,
pretty sure it's.
I'll see you in October.
We have a whole spreadsheet on the wall.
Yeah, we want
That would be,
So.
that would be helpful.
You
To be honest with you, he tells me he thinks. it's
Up for
30.
the
I'm
Upers,
gonna go by
Where's
that.
Upers,
Yeah.
I can get
the
you.
northern.
Thank you,
northern
that would be great.
Michigan,
Oh,
Thank you.
Way up
But I think
beyond
there's a
the
road like
Mackinac
that.
Bridge,
I think it's 30.
sounds.
right next to
Yeah,
Lake
people
Superior.
go like 50 on that. It's a
Well, have a
beautiful
good
straight.
trip.
It's like a runway, you know? But
Especially coming down.
I don't think that's.
Well, how you doing?
I always assumed that if it
Very
wasn't marked,
little 25s.
I always assumed that it wasn't marked, it's like 30, 35. Why am I getting called by Sid Blodgett?
Really? You guys caught, pick that on each other.
Maybe it's some other Sid Blodgett.
Trying to send you secret messages or something?
Maybe. Maybe.
All right.
Yeah.
Just put it away.
Yeah. Okay.
She didn't bring the worst file.
It wasn't really anything with it. It wasn't that kind of just straightforward. Okay. Thanks, Sid. You stayed to the end.
Yep. Good. Yeah, legal stuff for wetlands. It's the same thing. We have a copy of it. Since I've been on, I think it was a consultation. It's good to know.
Well, when we have to get legal review,
So I tell them, put our budget, we're still gonna do the work.
yeah, we all are together. We do, but what we do is we all work together.
Yeah.
Yep. Sometimes it's just one person contacting us. Ashley had it, but she was on her own.
Yeah.
No worries. Sometimes we have to get our stuff done. It needs to be done. We can't. We do. I'm gonna put this, we gotta back up every year and. What's happening? Is that still up there?
I don't know.
No, when we. Yeah.
There's nobody else here, but I want to.
I don't ask them. They never actually told me that we needed to do it in order to. Lock up, so I don't. So, but. Then we'll see after negative feedback from our selection. Actually, I don't think. Okay.
This came out of.
Oh, no, some of these cables were just not attached to anything.
This came out of that laptop, I think.
Okay. Oh, the town?
It came out of that.